off. It's 32, and I don't want to keep people waiting for a long time. So, Kay, welcome on the show, and everybody, welcome, and thanks for being here. I know this is a very difficult topic to pick up at this time because people don't really know what's going on, and even though I've been trying to do research on what everybody is saying, there's so much uncertainty, and one doesn't want to stick one's neck out and say something that will not work. But we've still tried to put together some guidance, some ideas, and some thoughts for the students applying this year and the students who already have admits, right? So let's plunge straight into it. Okay, so first up, let me quickly tell you who we are. So some of you are familiar with Inomi, some of you have worked with us before. We're a self-discovery based career and college guidance firm. I know me, the name means I know myself, self-discovery really. And we work with students to help them find their path and find what they love doing and find their best potential in which college they can get to and which college they can really flourish in. We also work with working people who, once they start working in job search, career transition, work-life development, and training and learning and development. So that's sort of the range of work that we do. I'm Richa, Dwivedi, Saklani. I'm a founder of Inomi Learning. This is really a work of passion for me. And one of the things that you may find it easier to relate to me with is a book that I've written called The Ultimate Guide to 21st Century Careers, where I've tried to put together some interesting insights into careers that students can relate to. So that's a bit about me. And we have on our webinar today a distinguished guest, Kaye. Kaye, please go ahead and tell them a bit about yourself and the college.
Sure. Yeah. Well, good evening. Thanks for being here. My name is Kaye Lani-Laughna. I'm the Director of International Admission and Financial Aid at Davidson College. I've been at Davidson in this role for the last 7 years, and I've worked in higher ed with international students for the last 12 years. Before Davidson, I was at Middlebury as an international student scholar advisor, so with the visa paperwork and orientation and really hands-on work with students during their liberal arts experience, and then moved into the admission world for one reason, to travel, right? So I've been fortunate to visit India about 6 times now throughout my career here at Davidson.
Wonderful, Kaye. I also wanted to, Abhishek, if you can just share the link about Davidson with everybody. And before we plunge into discussing COVID and the impact, Kaye, would you like to give everybody a little overview of what Davidson is and also what liberal arts is? Just a short overview for our audience.
Sure, I'll give a short overview. I'm not sure, can I share my link? Do you want to share that link that I shared with you?
Yes, Abhishek will just share that with everybody in the chat. So you'll get a link which sort of gives you an overview of the college anyway. Do you want me to run through that page as we are talking?
No, I think students can go ahead and look at that link, or family members can look at that link. It's just a way to get to know Davidson virtually. We are actually hosting live Q&As with faculty members. We're hosting live Q&As with students, and then also every evening at 7 o'clock Eastern time in the evening, there are live virtual tours. So you can take a tour of Davidson with actual Davidson students as your tour guides, and that's via Zoom. So you use Zoom, you can see the other students who are there, meet current students, and get to know Davidson that way. Davidson is 2,000 students. We are a liberal arts and science college, and we're part of this smaller subset of colleges and universities in the U.S. that focus on students between the ages of 18 and 22. It's residential. You live on campus all 4 years, and it really becomes a very close-knit community. For example, during this time when our students are at home, we still have about 130 students on campus for whom they felt Davidson was a better place to be, either because of the outbreak was the percentages were higher in their home countries, the ability to have their own space and to have reliable internet connection was better at Davidson. So we still have about 130 students. But during this time, our president, Carol Quillen, every Tuesday has been organizing kind of a live Tuesday evening where students can log in and perform music and poetry slams and just kind of have a performance stage as a way of still connecting together. Because we're a tight-knit community, this has been really hard for students to leave. So our president's doing a great job of keeping students connected. Liberal arts and sciences is the kind of the long name. We shorten it to liberal arts colleges. However, our most popular majors are biology, psychology, political science, and economics. And then we have the range from Africana studies to theater. The biggest differences of a liberal arts college versus universities is that focus just on undergraduate students. You know, we still get research opportunities from in the International Institute for Health. So we're still getting research opportunities up at $500,000 grants for our chemistry and biology students to be researching the effects of e-vaping and e-cigarettes. We do a lot with math and sports. We have a faculty member who works within the sports industry, but also math, who does a lot with sports data analytics. And so it's looking at how do we use math to come up with more successful sports plays. We also have faculty who focus on the humanities and who are focused on economics. Because of our location, we get to work closely with professionals in Charlotte, and we have a class in the spring. It's psychology, economics, and they work with, sorry, I have a dog in the background. You'll hear her. We work with companies that will be looking at consumer credit fraud. So Ernst & Young, for example, Ernst & Young professionals have worked with Davidson faculty and students to do credit fraud prevention. So it's really a personalized experience. We're fortunate to be one of the top liberal arts colleges in the United States. So we have quite a few students interested in Davidson, and it's because of the experience of our faculty and what they're bringing, that close-knit environment, and really the personal experience our students have. So that's a little about liberal arts, and then also some of the specifics of Davidson being close to a major city like Charlotte, where we access professionals who will do coursework with our students and integrating more of the professional side within their experience here.
Thank you, Kay. It's the breadth of options that students have in a liberal arts college that makes it so precious. And a small college like Davidson, you know, highly ranked with 2,000 students, is really a dream for a lot of our students who are looking for a small environment, looking to do some intense work, and also looking to discover themselves as they go along. So thanks so much for that.
Yes.
Right. So if we move ahead now and look at what's going on right now, so plunging straight into it, we are in a lockdown, right? And as people who are going through a lockdown, we're going to be looking at the impact of the lockdown on two sets of students. First, we're going to be looking at students who already applied for 2020 intake. So students who have acceptances and waitlists already from colleges in the US or Canada or UK. But mostly we'll sort of focus on the US colleges and sort of see what does this mean for them, right? So how has the lockdown affected the students who've already got acceptance, right? So one thing, of course, is that how do you accept or reject a college? And, you know, while most colleges usually suggest a May 1 deadline for putting in your deposit and for finally accepting that college, a lot of colleges have shifted their deposit dates to June 1 this year because students are uncertain and it's not really sure what people want to do. Also, financially, a lot of people are strained. So to give them that flexibility, they've sort of shifted it out to June 1. Though some colleges are requesting students, if they made up their mind earlier, do acceptance by April 15 so that they can figure out their online classes. So one of the big things that students are dealing with is the fact that a first semester could be online. So, okay, I wanted to ask you this first, that, you know, is Davidson already gearing up for an online semester coming up in 2020?
No, we are going to take it day by day. As of right now, the hope and plan is that students will arrive mid-August in Davidson. If that's not possible, we are looking at, do we push out our start date to September, right? Historically, we usually start at the end of August, but we thought about would we be flexible in starting mid-September or starting in September. Another option that we've talked about is it comes down to visas as well. Right now, the consulates and embassies are not issuing any visas. The part to give yourself a little peace of mind is to keep in mind that most international students get their F1 visas in June and July. So we're still in April, right? We're still in early April. I-20 paperwork is usually sent out in May. Unless you were admitted early decision, you might already have that. But the earliest you can apply is 90 days before your start date, which would be later in April. But most students apply for their US visas June and July. So at this point, we're all in it together. I think we're all learning day by day. We can't predict because this virus has been very unpredictable. So we have to kind of wait to see. We haven't made any decisions about our fall semester. Again, I think our president and faculty members will come together at some point in the late spring, early summer to make a decision if we're going online. If visas become available later in the fall, maybe we would take an intake of international students in January. So there are a lot of different things to think about and be flexible. But as of right now, the conversation has been surrounded. We want to stay on track where we originally start the semester in August. So we haven't had any of those conversations yet.
Thanks, Kaye. Some of our students who are on this call are students who have acceptances already, and I want to encourage you to ask questions if you want to. There's a chat button over there where you can type out your question, and then we'll be able to answer it. So, Kaye, I understand that there are various options that we are working with, and obviously there is uncertainty, but it helps people to know that there are these 2 or 3 possible options and what can be. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is waitlists. So a lot of students are on waitlists, and we keep hearing that waitlists are going to move really fast this year because maybe people will step back from US admissions, be very hopeful about your waitlist. On the other hand, we also heard people say, colleges are really building a very large waitlist because they're completely uncertain about whether students will accept or not. So do you think students should wait it out as long as possible for waitlists this year?
So I can tell you that we are seeing students deposit at the same rate, if not a little sooner than in the past. And I think part of that is you're getting all your live or virtual information online. We don't have open houses throughout April, so you can connect with students earlier, get that information earlier than perhaps a traditional cycle throughout the month of April. We are tracking our wait list closely. I would say if you're on a wait list, you probably, if you want to stay on that wait list, you may have had the option to click, yes, I want to stay on this wait list, but you need to do more. You need to be in touch with the school, not just that one email in the very beginning, maybe late March when you got your letter that you were on the wait list or notification, but maybe in this week, if you haven't been in touch with that school, it does not need to be a long email. It's basically stating, I'm really interested, I'm on your wait list. Is there information I can give you? I just want to know that this school is a school that I'm really excited about and I would accept. If you were ready to accept that school, you would let them know. And we track this the middle of April, right? In another week, you send another email to your admission counselor saying, I know I was in touch last week. Nothing has changed about my interest in the school. I'm still very interested. Historically, we've gone to the wait list very last few days of April, May 1st, after we have a better sense of our class. As of right now, that's still our plan. I believe that's the plan of many of our peer schools, is to still go at the end of April, early May. But really, we can't predict how many students will take off the wait list. That's all determined by the students we offered admission to and if they accept. The other factor you need to remember is on the wait list, sometimes students are put on a wait list because of financial aid, right? Many of us are need aware for non-US citizens. So it might be the case that we also have to wait till the end of April to see, do we have any funds left in our financial aid budget, dependent on who accepted our offer of admission. So there's also a financial aid piece that comes into play. And I would be very, very honest about how much you can afford. And if your certificate of finance has changed because of economic changes, you can pay less or you can pay more. That's something to be very clear about when you're emailing your waitlist schools as well.
Thanks. That's very useful, Kaye. Another question that some of our students have is about the impact this is going to have on the financial aid and, possibly even on the fee going ahead. Now, I'm not really asking you what Davidson would be doing, but if you have some sort of an idea about the environment, really, that is the financial aid environment going to be tougher for students this year, which is what we're hearing mostly.
Well, I think we will have a better idea of that later this spring because we are currently working with our current students who left to go home on refunds. So a lot of colleges are offering partial refunds for room and board. So for those families that had paid a certain percentage, not the students who were on financial aid or receiving grants, if they're receiving all financial aid and grants, that's Davidson funding if they were to be on campus. But if a family spent $30,000, $45,000, or the full $75,000 a year for a liberal arts college, they are getting a refund. So we also have to calculate how much refund are we giving out and how might that affect future financial aid budgets. As of right now, my financial aid budget will stay the same for next year's class with the same financial aid budget that I had this year. And I think we'll have conversations about that going forward. We have not had conversations to change any policies on our need blind policy for U.S. citizens or dual citizens, and we're need aware for international, but we meet 100% of financial aid. Those are policies that we plan to continue going forward.
Thanks, Kaye. So this is sort of how I had seen the aspects of things that are impacting students for 2020 intake. Is there something else you'd like to point out to them before we move on to the students applying this year for 2021 intake?
I would say just remember, don't be hard on yourself if you think, I don't have updated grades to share. I don't have updated activities to share. We're all home. We're all in the same situation that we're home, right? I asked a student because he said, I don't have anything to share. I'm on the wait list. What can I share? I asked, how are you staying connected to your school community? How are you staying connected with friends? How are you supporting your family? What are some things that you've been doing with your family? So just kind of shifting your framework a little bit and understanding that we know the limitations. We do want to make sure that you're prepared academically. We're going to take, the grades that we have from you. We also know that national exams are being canceled and schools are rethinking how do we assess internally to make sure that students are given the grades that they should based on their performance in class and their continued work in class. But a lot of it is shifting your framework to what can I do, right? How am I engaging with my family? Is there anything I've done to be helpful now that I'm home more? How am I continuing to create community within my high school? If you had a role within high school where you did create community or you were, a lead of a certain club, have you tried to help your students stay engaged or your classmates stay engaged? These are things that you can share with us. But bottom line is we do not have high expectations for what you are able to do, right? We are all in the same situation of a certain sense of, this sense of uncertainty, this sense of limitation in what we can do, and just being honest about what your current situation is. Share with us, as you are staying home more, how has your day changed, right? Are you still taking classes? Are you still studying? How is your school supporting you through this time? And what are some things that you've done to help continue community within your school? That's a big one for Davidson or other liberal arts colleges. But I think a lot of schools just want to say, what's your mental health like right now? How are you helping others get a good sense of well-being? And how are you taking care of yourself and family members during this time?
Yes. Those are very, very good suggestions, Kaye, and that it's very heartening to hear that colleges do have the empathy to understand that students are stuck and there's very little that they can do to enhance that profile right now. We will come to that a little bit more later in this presentation. But let's move on now to students who are applying in 2020 for 2021 intake. And there the impact has been largely on testing because as you all know, that SAT and ACT has been cancelled up till May, though the AP tests are still going on, but they're happening in an online format now, and subject tests are also cancelled, right? So what is likely to happen Of course, we don't know. The June test may happen. There's a bit of a question mark over there. College board may provide additional testing dates for people, but colleges are also going test optional. And I put together for you a list of some of the colleges that are going test optional, some of the colleges that are already test optional. So, students, you may be aware that uh, the movement towards colleges transitioning to a test optional admission format is been going on for a while in the US over the last 5 years or so, and a number of universities have already made the transition even before this whole thing happened. So these are some of the top universities and colleges and liberal arts colleges that we are aware of where testing is already optional, and these are all highly ranked colleges. NYU just for the art and music courses where you offer a portfolio or an audition. Parsons is also a design college, so they've gone test optional on SAT as well. Most of the colleges here are liberal arts colleges, but you also have George Washington University, WPI. You have American University that is a test optional already. And now we'll look at the colleges that have made a move towards going test optional this year because of the corona thing. So some of them have decided to make this move just for 1 year. Some of them have said, okay, this is a good opportunity for us to try it out. Let's try it out for 3 years. Some of them have just said indefinitely, okay, we were thinking about it anyway. Now's a good time. Let's just go test optional, right? So these the UCs, which is University of California, UC Berkeley, UCLA, Davis, Santa Barbara, a lot of the ones that you may have heard about, all of them have gone test optional for this year. So that's just for 2020 applications. And Boston University, Indiana Bloomington, Tufts, Pomona, Vassar, which are all excellent liberal arts universities and colleges. And they've all gone test optional for this year. And in a while, we'll bring Kaye in to sort of help us understand what that means for students, really. But quickly going down the list again, I found this, Kaye, I haven't checked this with you, that Davidson is sort of on test option for 3 years. I found this online. I assume this is correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
right.
is.
And Rhodes College, and you've got some top uber elite universities like MIT and Caltech, which have got subject test options. So, MIT, Caltech, Harvard had a requirement of subject test. So you could only apply with 2 or 3 subject tests to these universities, and now they've gone subject test optional for this year. So that again makes it a little bit easier for students who are applying this year. Possibly we'll also understand from Kaye what it really means. And these are the universities which have gone test optional indefinitely for students in this year, right? So I think it's just Rochester and Oregon. I think Tufts, Pomona, and Vassar is repeated over here. So, all right. So now I just want, I know students have a lot of questions about what does it mean go test optional, and I wanted to ask you, Kaye, that is it just something for students to celebrate that, oh fine, I'm going test optional? Does it make it easier for certain type of students? Does it make it actually tougher for certain type of students to get admission? How do they see it?
So the reason we chose to go for 3 years is because we feel it's going to impact every high school student at this point. Because of this delay, there's the kind of the testing that would happen early in high school, and then also the preparation work, but also just the fact that there are going to be fewer test sites. I know that the idea is it might go online, but testing has always created a socioeconomic barrier, right? Those who have access to test prep, those who have access to take the test more than once or can travel to different test centers obviously have a better chance of having higher scores. And so we're looking at right now, if there are going to be fewer options for the SAT or ACT, that creates an even larger barrier. So we are looking to take out the test and really we'll be focused on your academic work. So we're going to look closely at your academic work. The state exams, the Indian exams that you take after year 10, we'll be looking at closely, but then we're going to be looking at your academics. At Davidson, we are also adding Duolingo for the English proficiency test. We waive that for most Indian students because your language of instruction is in English, and for many students, English is spoken as one of their first languages. So we do waive that for Indian students. However, we are going to put out a strong recommendation for initial view. This is a third-party interview where we get to understand the student in an unscripted format, right? When we are admitting students, we're looking for students who are going to be engaged in the classroom, in the dorms, on campus, creating friendships with their professors. So the conversation skill really is something that that we feel is a strong part of getting to know who you are as well. So initial view, it'll be recommended, but not required. So I think we're really going to look more closely at your academics, your letters of recommendation. We've always looked closely at letters of recommendation, but those are going to give us an even greater sense of who you are as a student in the classroom. So the testing piece will be optional, of course. If you take it, you are welcome to submit your scores, but we will not use those scores in the conversation of making decisions.
Right.
So you could take this as focus less on the memorization and the studying for the SAT and ACT. Focus more on your academic work in school, the community of your school, and what you can do to engage outside of the classroom. So this creates an opportunity for you to spend more time doing things that maybe mean more to you. Exactly. What are you passionate about? What are some things that you feel strongly about? Taking initiative. And a big thing at Davidson is, how do you get others involved? How do you help others to see their potential? And how do you make sure that they are also involved in leadership roles? We much more value leadership for many rather than leadership for one. So we're really looking at kind of how are you supporting your local community or your school community or even your family. So these are different things that we're going to look at more closely as we are reviewing applications.
Right. Thanks. Kaye, actually, students have a couple of more questions around testing, which I'll put to you. And, as students are asking them, one of them is that if it is test optional, does it mean that it will not hold any significance? I think where this is coming from is the fact that, some students may already have taken one attempt and some students may have got a really good score and they'd obviously like to submit that great score. So would that put the students who've not taken it at a sort of a disadvantage?
No, not at all. So as I mentioned, we will not be talking about your test scores. So in committee, as it's played out over the years, we will have a dashboard or a spreadsheet of kind of your name, test scores, your GPA as we recalculate your GPA, different attributes as far as we see in your application, which include leadership, passion, initiative. And then we have our commentary or narrative of why I want to admit you to Davidson. We will no longer have test scores as part of that conversation or up on the dashboard. We are going to be talking more about the narrative piece of who you are as an applicant, who you are as a human being, with the number one question being your academic readiness for a place like Davidson. If you're at a school that offers IB or AP and that's part of your curriculum, then we would see you taking those classes. If you're at a school that is offering the national curriculum and AP courses aren't offered, we do not expect to see you self-studying or testing for AP. So those testing pieces are not part of the conversation, especially if they're not part of your curriculum. If you're at a high school that offers them, that's part of your high school curriculum. If it's not part, we don't expect to see secondary results that have come from testing on your own. So really the testing piece will be out. You are of course welcome to submit it and we will have that on file as part of your application, but it's not going to be part of the overall conversation because we don't want to, one who doesn't take it at all, to be at a disadvantage to a student who has taken it.
Right. Okay. So one last testing question before we move on. So, some of the students have already taken one test and they have scores somewhere around 1350 or 1400 or 1450, which they had hoped to improve to at least by 100 points, right? So should they, for colleges that are saying that we test optional, that we don't mind it if you send us the score, do you think they should send a score which is a little suboptimal from their perspective or not?
I would say if you are proud of your scores and you feel like it's something that you took time studying or you're proud of them, send them. If you're not sure you want to send your scores, it's not going to be against you. Being test optional means that we are not going to be reviewing or conversing about your scores within the admission process. We have not quite refined the language around testing. If we would ask you to submit them at a later date, if you've taken it or with your application materials. So we are still kind of working on language, whether or not we would, at what point, if you want to submit them, you would submit them.
Right. Thanks.
Of course, if you self-report, I would do one last thing, Richa, is if you self-report is the test scores that you submit later have to match what you self-report, because on the common application or anything that you're submitting, you're also signing off saying everything that's stated in this application is true and verifiable.
Absolutely. That goes without saying. Thanks, Kaye. Yeah, but I understand the authenticity is very important over there, right? So let's then move to saying that, so now that, test scores are taken out of the equation, so what's really important? And Kaye did stress a little bit on academics. Before I move on to the other things, I just want to answer one of the questions someone's asked me, which is to say that since I'll be getting my 12th results in April next year, what would I have to submit as my grades for senior year? So that's really a predicted grade that your school gives you. And once the school gives you a predicted grade as a sort of algorithm where they take your half-yearly grades and the trend of your performance in the last couple of years and their assessment of you, and they give you a predicted grade, and that's usually what you submit. Right. So what I've added over here, apart from academics and school grades, is that you could also use this opportunity to pick up a couple of courses, online courses from universities, from some of the top universities via edX or Coursera that really shows your passion in the particular area. Like some of you may not have studied computer science in school because of various reasons and want to include some technology in your liberal arts exploration once you join college. This is a good time to do a base level technology course. Some of you are saying that, okay, I'm studying psychology, but what I'm really interested in is neuroscience. Now, this is a good time for you to pick up a neuroscience course and do that, or even to do a course on, there's this beautiful course on poetry that you can possibly be looking at. So in one of our webinars earlier, we had listed out a lot of online courses across design, psychology, business, STEM, computer science that students could be looking at, and writing. And we'll be happy to share that with you if you like, right? So the second thing that Kaye also emphasizing on is this leadership passion initiative that do something that shows how you connect with people. And students are asking this very pertinent question of saying that what kind of community work do you suggest, considering that the scope is very restricted due to COVID? Any ideas there, Kaye?
Well, again, going back to limitations and expectations during this time is we don't expect you to be out in your communities during this time, right? The message is to stay at home. I don't know what the regulations are in India right now, or if it's by state, or if it's by city.
It's the same across the country. You have to
stay at home, right? So that means we don't expect you to be volunteering in your local community. But you are supposed to be keeping your distance, and you're keeping your circle of people you see regularly and interact regularly quite small, right? During this time, leadership can take a variety of different ways. One that I mentioned is everyone is home, but we have all these online tools that can connect us, right? Are there ways that you're helping classmates stay motivated? Are there ways that you are connecting with groups online? Again, also appreciating the limitations, right? So how are you creating a better atmosphere for your family? This is a stressful time to have everyone home, right? Especially if maybe you had an older sibling who's already been away at university and now is back in the household. Are there ways that you are kind of helping your family to get through this as well? But really the expectations of you in this time are very little in the sense of doing community service or leadership, right? You're doing what you can do, and we're all in the same situation. So when we're looking at your extracurricular activities during this time, they're going to look different, right? There's going to be a different set because of limitations. Exactly, what Richa said is, you have access to courses online. What are some things that inspire you? What do you want to learn more about? There are a lot of different TED Talks. There are, courses on wellness. There are, and maybe how are you sharing that information, right? If you take a course on mental health and wellness, you take a course on within computer science or psychology or neuroscience, and you really find it stimulating, not necessarily just something to put in your application, but you're like, gosh, this was really exciting. Share it with others, right? Start something that can help inspire others during this time when we're all at home. I just sat in on a Zoom meeting with our our director of wellness and physical education, and we talked about, recipes and healthy eating during this time. We talked about, doing online yoga classes, offering things that you might be talented in to others within your school community or community. If people have access to Zoom or have access to Google Hangout or Google Chat or whatever platform, I think just keeping people motivated and a positive mindset can go a long way during this time.
Absolutely, Kay. I agree with you. And, we looked at this again in one of our first webinars, and we've got some resources over there that you can reach out to. Some suggestions of some of our students who are already trying to do something is to, write poetry or to, collect writings from people about sort of like a lockdown diaries, like what are people going through? What are young people like yourself going through? Creating a sort of a support group for students, one of the things. I have a student who's building a series of easy to make recipes at home because she's saying, now I have the time to really cook. So let me put that to make a blog. Right? So there are simple things that you can do.
Exactly.
Led by your passion.
This could be a great time to learn the recipes from your grandmother, right? To learn great recipes of, family that you didn't have time to cook, because your friends that you meet, right? When you get to university in the US, you could say, oh, I really have this great, what is the rice, the biryani? No.
Biryani,
right? From every region has its own take on it, right? Really mastering that. So, it's just doing things you're not going to have this kind of quality time with family as you get older and as you move far from university, right? After you leave university and you get a job, you have less time with your family. So trying to reframe it as a gift of time, as stressful as it can be at times, but just thinking you have this gift of time to be with family members that you won't have as much time with once you leave for university. And documenting that. At Davidson, we asked for a book list. Book lists might be a little longer next year with applicants because you have more time for reading. We don't have any expectations on what books you're reading. Read what you enjoy, right? And maybe it's starting a virtual book club, right? Get some of your classmates together and what books are inspiring, or virtual TED Talks, right? You all watch the same TED Talk and then you talk about it. It's just, how do you create community when you don't have it physically or as easily, right? And that keeps you motivated. It's really, we're hoping students are just staying motivated, both academically and socially, with the limitations that we all have around the world.
There are some excellent ideas there, Kay. Thanks so much for that. Two other suggestions on how you can spend your time is starting some work on your essays. Common App essays for next year are the same as last year, and the UCs have their essays out also. There's a statement of purpose that you can start working on. You can perhaps start researching some of your colleges, so you can at least start putting an essay bank together, start learning how to do essays. That's one excellent way for you to spend time. Another great thing for you to do is what is called demonstrated interest, which is where you sort of look at your college list, and look at what are probably the 4 or 5 colleges that you really, really love to get into, and start engaging with those colleges, start engaging with the social media page and the colleges, do a virtual tour, right? So as we go ahead, I'll share some of the the demonstrated interest activity. So there's this excellent resource that one of the counselors in one of the universities in the US, I forget the name of the university, she's creating this online tour database and regularly updating it. So you can see which universities have online tours available, and you register yourself there so the university knows that you're interested. And you also get to know something about the university and spark something off for you that you can research a little bit more. right? So that's one of the things you can do. You can reach out to professors within universities if you want to appreciate their research, maybe suggest, something that you might want to associate with them on. You can reach out to people in industry or professors within India if you have an idea that, I'd like to research this. Can someone mentor you? There are so many people sitting at home twiddling their thumbs right now that, someone
Mhm.
might be able to just mentor you a little bit on putting together some research which would be of value to colleges, right?
Right. And that's exactly it. That demonstrated interest, you're not going to be able to visit campuses in the near future, right? We don't know when the travel and visa restriction will change. So thinking about everything that's offered, the Davidson 360 page, we offer the virtual tours, and it's not just one that you do on your own. If you want to get up, I think it'll be pretty early your time, but if you want to get up in the morning and then you're actually live with other students and 2 current Davidson students, getting on the Instagram account, getting to know place, right? So we have the Davidson Daily that's run by students, and currently we're doing student profiles, right? This student who's done research in different areas. They might mention a faculty member, go and research the faculty member. Email the faculty member and say, gosh, I really am interested in how you work with, professional sports agencies, and then also with math, right? Or thinking about the neuroscience work, thinking about chemistry, thinking about computer science, and working with local professional companies, which we do at Davidson. So just make your list of questions and then be in touch. In contacting the faculty, one kind of a note of insight is ask questions that you can't find the answers to online, right?
Yes.
Reference. I was on your website and here's what I learned. I wish I could visit. Can you put me in touch with the faculty? Or how can I get to know this area better? And they might direct you to, something that is available online, or I might connect you with the faculty or a current student. Most have seniors who are working with their admission offices. If you go to the admission office webpage, contact us or contact a student, usually there's a list of about 8 students, their photos, their bios of what they're studying and what they're involved in on campus, and then their direct email contact. It's their job working with their offices to be in touch with you. Get in touch with current students. And then the demonstrated interest piece is if you sign up for an online information session or you sign up for an online tour, then we gather your information. And then if you decide to apply, there's a little checkbox that says, you attended one of our virtual tours, or just getting in touch with your admission counselor, right? So this is a time, yes, you can do demonstrated interest, start refining your list. Maybe first start with what are the things that are most important to you as a human being? What do you want to experience in these 4 years of university in the US? Make sure the schools have that. If you can't find it online, then the next step is to get in touch with students or your admission counselors. But what are those things you really want to experience, and make sure the schools have it. And in just getting to know place through students is probably the best thing that you can do.
Right. Okay, it's very useful. One of the students is asking us how to contact the professors. That's typically through finding their email online, and most universities do share their email IDs. And then you mail the professors. But as Kaye said, please, there's a fine line between sending a meaningful email and spamming professors. So you really have to ask a question that, like she said, you can't find the answer online, and something that you genuinely mean to connect with the professor on, that actually engages the professor in a conversation, rather than opening the mail and saying, oh, this is a kid who's trying to do some demonstrated interest activities with us, right? And so social media is another way to connect with.
I was just going to say one thing related to testing that I just thought of. So this is just going back, is in planning for your applications, don't apologize for what you couldn't do, right? If you decide to submit your testing, say, well, I was planning on taking it again to earn another, 100 points in this section. We realize you can't do that, right? That's why we're going test optional. So don't apologize for what you can't do. Focus on what you can do during this time. We are more interested in learning about who you are and what you can do and what you're able to do during this time than what you can't do, right? So present yourself in what you've been able to do rather than focusing on the things that you feel you're missing out on, or opportunities that you can't do because no one can, right? Just remember that we're all in the same situation, and we will have that lens as we are reading applications this fall.
Yeah, I have another question here by someone who's saying, does the university of the online course you are doing matter? Let me answer that directly to say that it matters a little bit. Most of the time, edX and Coursera have really leading universities in their fields, and the courses are all highly rated. It's important for you to find a course that fits in with your story, rather than to say, oh, what courses is MIT offering and what courses is Harvard offering, and pick up that course. It's more important to pick up a course, for example, a course on neuroeconomics, because you're going to be talking about behavioral economics in your story or your statement of purpose. And then to say that that's the course you did, even though it's being offered by Copenhagen Business School in Denmark, right? So it may not be a top university, but it fills you. I mean, it is a great university, but it's not a Harvard. But it fits together in your story really beautifully. So that's really important. Now, there's a question over here from someone who's a master's student here. We can just step a second into master's. I know for students who are applying this year, even GRE is being made for some students, but this is a person who's already put in her applications, and she's asking, will there be a delay in master's admission acceptance this year?
I don't know that because we only have undergraduate students, but I can tell you that a few of our seniors have applied to master's programs and the timeline has been delayed. So the decisions are coming out a little later. I'm sure they're in the same position of visa restrictions, what is our availability to have in-person classes, but I don't have concrete information on that since we don't have master's programs at Davidson.
Right, thanks. But that is insightful, that there would probably be a small delay, right? So I think that as far as the specific questions are concerned, we have sort of covered the gamut of things. To summarize, before I move on to the last slide, which I really want to inspire you with, just to summarize the whole thing is that for students who have already got acceptances this year, there is a lot of uncertainty. However, colleges are really keen to provide students the best experience possible, and they're trying to explore all possible opportunities for you to do that. Try to use this time to build on your profile to some extent even before you go to college, because it's okay, the huge party that people wanted to have after finishing school is unfortunately not available to you, but you can still do a lot of things online. You can study, you can read, you can add value to yourself even before you join college. For students who are applying this year, this is a great opportunity for you to work on your profile, because your profile is going to matter so much more. Come up with creative ideas of what you can do. Spend an hour a day doing something that matters to you, and go ahead from there. And that should be really valuable when you when the whole world opens up and you put everything together. Then apart from academics, which will really be the hero of everything this year, your profile and how you use this time will also be extremely valuable, right? So one of the things I mentioned over here is this Hope During a Pandemic challenge, which we'll be sharing these slides with you with all the links so you can take a quick look at it. And this is a challenge where you can put up a poem or an art piece or a STEM idea, which is just, how are you trying to engage with this pandemic? And it's a contest, and I'd really encourage people to apply for this or any other contest around this that you find, right? Okay, so this is really what I wanted you to consider, right? So this is not the first time, even though we feel that the world has never been through this before, but the world in smaller parts of the world, there have been lockdowns because of the plague and the influenza flu, the Spanish flu, and various pandemics that the world has seen before. And there are people who have actually used the pandemic to create something amazing. So look at yourself and say that, could I be that pandemic genius who could do something like that? And there's some inspiration for you. That Isaac Newton, during the plague, had just finished college, and he was at home for a number of months after that because there was nothing else that he could do. And that's the time when he started some work on calculus, which he went on to invent later. So that and a lot of his initial works from that period are extremely precious. William Shakespeare created a beautiful poem which is very, very famous. Some initial part of King Lear was written at that part. King Lear was actually presented to the world very soon after the lockdown opened. So find it in yourself that, do you have a masterpiece waiting for you to come out? This is an artist called Edward Munch, who we must all be familiar with the scream, that image of that frightening person with the elongated face, which is often used in so many movies. So this picture in the right hand corner is his self portrait. He didn't make the scream during this period, but he himself went through the flu himself, and this is a self portrait that he made at the time, which is also extremely famous, of himself suffering from the flu. And another famous artist who made a self-portrait looking at herself in the mirror when she had polio and she was under confinement. Just to say that, so many people could discover their genius during a time of lockdown, and you could very well be one of those. So go ahead and consider what it is that you could do, and is this really the time when you discover the masterpiece inside you? Kay, do you want to add anything?
No, I think this is fantastic. It's, you've got to put a positive spin on it, right? That's all we can do is just think about, how can I be, creative? What's something that I wish I had time for? I think back a month or 2 months ago, you were, busy thinking about, your classes, your exams, your internal assessments. You were thinking about everything you had. Now you have this gift of time. What are some of the things you wish that you could have done more research on, or that you could have tried that you've never tried before? The other thing I would say is, you mentioned writing. Coming to the US, and especially liberal arts colleges, we really work on your writing, regardless of what field you go into, right? You go into physics, you go into math, you go into political science or computer science. Writing, we feel, is one of the strongest skills you can have. So practice your writing. It may be through poetry, it might be through listening to a TED Talk, and then doing a debrief that you can share, right? You share it with your family, but you write it out. You share it with friends and family as you're inspiring them to do different work. But just think of this as an opportunity to do things that maybe you haven't been able to focus on that you really do love. I think all this is great advice and good information. And thank you for welcoming me and inviting me to join you this evening.
Thank you, Kay. Thanks for your time, and thanks everybody. Thank you for your time. I hope this has been helpful for you. Good night and take care.